Ben Folds, welcome to eTown. Sounds great. Good to hear you play and sing.
Oh, thank you. Good to be here.
Your new CD is full of, these great self-deprecating anti-hero pop songs. And
I'd write the opposite of my real life.
And you dress the opposite of your real life too. I can.
Absolutely.
But
high heels don't good on here.
But it also includes concerto for piano and orchestra in 3 parts.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious about whether you think classical music is like, oh God, classical music. So your audience, do they need to be do you have to hold their hands and kind of walk them towards this and help them discover classical music in a way that doesn't freak people out or something like that?
I don't think if it's a genre, I don't think the genre of classical music, the institution of that, is something that it's not something that someone like me needs to walk them towards. I think that everyone hears it all the time and is well aware of what it is. You hear movies all the time, symphony orchestras. You hear the London Symphony Orchestra every 2 seconds. I think that what it is more than anything is the idea that you might want to sit down and pay attention to it. Is that it's not really part of our lifestyle right now, and I think that there's so much to sitting down and listening to. I don't know, whoever, Prokofiev or Ravel or somebody, sit down and listen to something that you might be able to relate to that's a little bit longer. But no, I don't think the audience has to be fed it. If I could do anything, and I happen to be able to turn a few million of my closest friends towards like at least some particular 20th century composers, just that they would listen to it rather than just kind of let it pass. That would be good. Yeah.
And is there an attention span thing that has to be overcome too, because things get shorter and shorter, and that really does require being able to focus and concentrate for 10, 15 minutes sometimes, right? So
yeah, I know. I mean, that's hard for me. I mean. We go to movies. I mean, that's the great hope to me. We go to movies. We'll hang on to Breaking Bad for however many seasons that was. I mean, we'll stick with things. Yeah. It just different things become more and less relevant. I think the thing about attention span is that maybe we've hit the. I would hope we've hit the. Hit the wall.
The nadir, the bottom.
Yeah, it's time to go back. I mean, because I do think some things are there's a limited number of breaths you have. The sun comes up on a certain cycle. There are sort of numbers and times and stuff. There's that 20-minute lull when no one knows what to say, which just happened to me just a moment ago. And I think we've hit the edge of that, and hopefully it comes back. Yeah.
It's cool, I think, also because. For example, you must have had a moment where that world, maybe it was in cartoons, maybe it was Walt Disney, but there was you describe yourself as the guy who grew up on sugar cereals and television. So there must have been a moment where that door opened when you were beginning to play the piano as a kid, and some kind of classical music appealed to you, and you sort of discovered that as a path to explore. But I know that recording with the Nashville Symphony Orchestra, those pieces that you created, were they fully developed, fully orchestrated when you met and started working with them, or you didn't have Edgar Meyer come in and write all your parts or whatever?
No. I would be happy to.
Yeah.
If you would return my call, it would be nice. Yeah.
But so how much preparation and training did you need to fully develop that level of composition for that many pieces?
Well, I did grow up. I mean, I grew up playing in orchestra since I was a wee child. I played percussion as you were saying. I was doing that when I was 6 years old, and knew music theory and knew those things. I wasn't particularly a great piano player, but I played since I was little, and I think I had a pretty good range of what to listen to when I was a kid. So, even writing out music is not something I find that difficult. I don't read well because I don't sight read that well, at least on the piano. But if we had a string section here and we needed a string part, I could write that stuff out in 20, 30 minutes, and we could be playing it as long as I have whiteout. I like whiteout.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great. And tell us a little bit about Why Music, the group, the ensemble that you've been working with from New York. I know you're going to be touring with, and they're represented on the record too.
I mean, I think they're kind of the future of music to me, of the kind of music that we're talking about. Yeah. I mean, they're outstanding musicians. They're all roughly 30 years old. They went to Juilliard, were trained at gunpoint, potty trained. I mean they They also learn music there. But you know, they're a new breed that are just as likely to be into Kendrick Lamar as they are into anything Shostakovich to them.
Right.
In fact, we saw him together, and they just called him the maestro the rest of the night. They loved what he did. And so when someone's like that, they're not really thinking of like making it relate, man, for kids. They're thinking it's just music. And I think that's the way it needs to be approached. I mean, I think Benjamin Britten coined his music for human beings, and I think that's a good idea. You know, it's like classical music doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be necessarily even a challenge to your emotions. It might be a challenge to transcribe it, and I wouldn't expect everyone to do that. But it definitely evokes an emotion. Mm-hmm. That's why it's used for movies.
Well, it also, I mean, I think like jazz, it requires good chops. I mean, people have to be really good at their instrument. They have to transcend that thing about thinking about. They have to sort of be so connected, sort of at one with their instrument that they can just express themselves like a conversation.
Yeah, but bluegrass is the same way to me. I mean, I think that's just as, I mean, you've got the same chops as a classical player, and you may be a classical player as well. You've got that. And back to Kendrick, he's got that as a rapper. It's just, I think the difference is that you've got to, in classical music, you just have to be able to do that when you show up.
Right.
You don't have any time. The page is there, you got to interpret it, play it, everything, watch the dude with the stick, the whole thing's got to happen.
Yeah. It's a skill set. It's amazing. In case you just tuned in, you're listening to eTown here with Ben Folds. A lot of orchestras around the country are struggling right now. You're a guy who has sort of found this way to infuse energy into these different things. In fact, there was a fight when you were playing with the Boston Pops. I don't know whether you staged that for publicity or not, but that was bizarre.
That was the bizarrest 24 hours. I mean, well, that wasn't. First of all, it was established those were prescription. They probably were prescription audience members. They were subscription audience members at the Boston Pops. They weren't my and they didn't start that fight. They were like ripped off each other's clothes and chairs were flying off the balcony. It was a big deal. I don't know. They were playing like theme to Star Wars or something. It wasn't me. I wasn't up on stage yet, but. I do think that the symphony orchestras. My sort of speech. I have a quick speech that I make every night. I hope it doesn't ruin it for anyone coming up in any town. But I mean, it's really simple. There are two kind of cities. There's one that has symphony orchestras, and there's the other that are crap. And I think that that's actually true. You can cobble together something. This is an artistic symbol of civilization. And if you're civilized, I'm a big fan of civilization, but not everyone is. If that's what you subscribe to, then I think you need the symbol of it, and the symbol comes from it happening. When the symbol goes away, it's a suspicious bad sign to me.
Right.
And I think that audiences, communities, cities need the symphony orchestra possibly more than the symphony orchestra needs them, and that's generally what my speech is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another style of music that might be sort of ghettoized a little bit just by virtue of either ignorance or lack of experience is a cappella. And you've sort of debunked that a little bit, too, by your 4 seasons on television as a judge of a cappella competitions. And again, is that it's just music, right? So
it's just music, and it's if you're singing an a cappella group, you have to understand. You might not know how to express it, verbally, or you don't know what it's called. But I mean, you're like into voice leading and tuning, even tempered, not even tempered, all kinds of stuff. Like you're figuring it out. Some of the a cappella groups. I mean, this is replacing to some extent the sort of the sororities and fraternity sort of system. I mean, it won't replace it, but it's an alternative to that as a means of being in the middle of something, and it's really natural and human. And I suspect that there was an atrophy in our education system that is inversely proportional to the rise of a cappella groups in college. And these college a cappella groups aren't really even supported most of the time by the university. It's just the campus they use. And it's more and more every year, more of them. And I think it means something. It's a basic human thing for people to sing together. And the groups on the sing off, they were all a cappella groups. the handlers that normally deal with the musicians and dancers and the reality TV show stuff, every season they were blown away. They never had a problem. Like, people got along together. They tried to start stuff between them and just to get some entertainment going, and they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
They're just too nice. They get along well, and there's not a diva in the group usually. It's usually like they all support each other. Yeah. I mean, I've heard some stories, and I know the guy who wrote the Pitch Perfect movie had some stories that make it funny, but in real life, I hadn't really experienced that much. Yeah. What I've experienced is that, again, it's that civilization thing. It's like they have to work together, and that they have to work together. It's like, oh, I see that, because otherwise you don't get an example of it.
And does that start as jazz choirs in high school? Is that where that a cappella kind of tradition, you mentioned it as an important thing for people to get together, socialization, community, singing together. It's just fundamental. It's kind of part of who we are. But does that skill set, does that thing develop in high school, in jazz choirs, or where does that start?
I think you find all sorts in the university a cappella world. You find
you got to go to college first before you find.
You need to be in college, probably. Yeah, if you're going to be in one of those. And but
damn,
I know that was a problem for me too. But some of them are kind of jazz vocal world. That's right. Some of them. Some of them read. Some of them don't at all. Yeah. There's a whole. There's a whole bunch of them is very simple, and there's one guy going. In the back, and I think that's a little. I don't mind the beatboxing as much as the cymbals drive me crazy, because but see, that's good, But you're trying to keep a beat, and then the only thing you've got is like one channel with your mouth, and then you decide you're going to make a cymbal happen. Well, the cymbal it has to cut off when the next beat starts, which is not the way a cymbal works. Yeah. So it just sounds like someone spit and then stopped. It's just silly.
So what's next? Is it polka music or square dance music that you're going to kind of hippify and bring new people to shine the light on? What's next?
I want to introduce people to the chicken dance, because I'm afraid they just don't know. See, if we were here all night, I paid my way through summer college playing polkas, and I could tell you some really funny stories about my lederhosen, but I won't do that.
I think everybody just got that image, and give them a minute to process it for a second.
Yeah, they got wind of that.
Yeah. Lastly, I just want to touch on your life as a photographer as opposed to your life as a musician and composer. So I think about songwriting as being kind of serendipitous and opportunistic. You walk around and things strike you, and maybe they turn into songs, maybe they don't. Is that sort of what your life as a photographer is like too?
Yeah, I think both things are about. They're about framing, and I think it's good for your brain to get a break and not be constantly framing something else, So using my eyes is good, When I'm photographing, I see things, and also you see things that are ironic and ridiculous and absurd and sad, and you wouldn't normally notice them. And I don't really think I'm that good at capturing them because I don't get to it in time. And I'm also usually scared of the subject if it's not someone I know. So if I see something happening, I'm not likely to walk up to them and just like put the camera in their face and assault them with it. I know people are really good at that. So I think that's probably where I fall short. But it's good just to see, like all the photographs that I thought to take are pretty amazing.
And are you a guy who's so super retro, analog tape and film in a darkroom, or are you taking digital cameras with you when you're on the road? Or?
Right now I have a film camera with me. It's a medium format camera. I don't mind the digital world at all. I like to be reminded. I feel like I'm so lucky to have grown up when things were analog, and that's my mindset. And when I get too far away from that, the first side effect I feel is just overindulgence. Too many takes, too many photographs, too many choices.
Right.
That's the main thing to me. It's not inherently, it doesn't sound or look bad to me. Digital music sounds fine. Yeah. I don't think that I can tell the difference, to tell you the truth, between a plug-in that has a really sad little picture of a tape machine rolling, like on there. If you take that all away and ask me to tell the difference, I don't think I can. And a lot of people say, it scrambles their nervous system or something like that. And I think that's probably jive. But I think that the process, because we certainly both came up in that, and we're lucky. But then again, kids these days,
Yeah.
they're coming up with a whole different thing, and it's not something that we're meant to know. So I lean on the analog side, but I don't have a problem with the digital.
Well, it's more about the editing and making decisions in real time rather than postponing those decisions. Where like I've got 100 options here that I'll do later. It's like, oh, if I'm going to punch that guitar solo on this analog tape, the other one goes away.
That's right.
Yeah.
And what I love about punches on analog tape is when the engineer messes it up just a little bit and you have to punch wider than you expected. Yeah. And then you've got a line that you didn't even think about, and you better just quit while you're ahead and leave it. Those are my favorite parts. Yeah. I love that stuff. But there's some good things about digital. Like I like the plugin called Cosmonaut because it sounds like a guy in space. That's good.
Yeah. That's now we're back to the serial thing. Okay, well, we've got lots more music. New CD, congratulations.
Thank you.
Tour, lots of stuff going on. And I like the fact that you are not afraid to kind of change the flavors, the color, the parameters, the frame. You're doing some reinvention, and it seems like very healthy and creative. I appreciate that.
Oh, well, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you I'm not going to be jumping into bluegrass anytime soon because I don't have the chops for that.
Meanwhile, welcome back, if you would. We got more music. Welcome back, Ben Folds. Thank you. Hi, this is Nick Forster from eTown. If you want to stay up to date with all the performances, interviews, and behind-the-scenes footage, click the subscribe button. Thanks.